On the 5th day of Christmas, my yarn fairy brought to me 5 golden eagles, 4 Jaeger jackets, 3 Scotch wools, 2 robin gloves, and a pattern by Paytons. Please. Yarn Fairy, I'm excited for today's gifts as this is a very interesting company. It only ran for about 25 years until in 1957 it became part of the Emu Group. But did you know that the wool was spun in Scotland, but their registered office was in Yorkshire, England, where most of the other hand knitting wool manufacturers were based? But do you notice in the very small print that the director's name includes P.A. Lacroix, French in brackets, who was their sole agent working out of London in the 1940s, that you'll see on the other pattern. This isn't an ad, but I hope if you're interested in vintage patterns, you've heard of the Knitting and Crochet Guild. They collect lots of vintage patterns as well as encouraging people with their knitting and crocheting today on Facebook groups, etc. And according to some of their researchers, they only have 270 of the patterns that were released by Golden Eagle. Do you have any patterns in your collection that haven't been documented yet? The Guild has about 50,000 patterns in their files. So the first pattern you've brought us is number 1217, and this is probably from the end of the company's life, basing on a bit of research. The pattern company says it's courtesy of Women's Own. So does anyone actually have a copy of a magazine that this was published in? It'd be great to be able to date it exactly. Back to the pattern though, and it's a chunky knit, so it'll be a lot faster to make than 3-ply sweaters. It has a lovely twisted rib and a cable down the sleeve, and a sewn on collar, with it's also in twisted rib. Do you prefer picking up stitches for the collar or sewing them on later with your projects? I'd love to hear in the comments what you think the best technique is. This was actually a pretty large size range for the 1950s. As you can see, the bust size is from 32 to 42 inches. Going back in time, the next pattern, number 996, is a houndstooth pattern on a teenager's tweed waistcoat, it says, and it's really adorable. The pamphlet also gives the pattern for the rib jumper that you can see. And as it was for a teenager, the bust sizes were only 32 to 34 inches. It's knit in Golden Eagle's fingering 2-ply, which they've put in brackets 3-ply, and it's a simple 2-row repeat. Do you yearn for a lovely waistcoat like this to join in with all those dark academia vibes that you're seeing on the internet? The next pattern, number 910, has been found advertised in Vogue Knitting in 1949, which helps us to date this into the 1940s, and certainly after the war when they started to print in colour again. Like many patterns of the time, there's no colour work chart, and you have to read the instructions instead. At least this is only in 2 colours, which were white and wine. So unfortunately the pattern doesn't give us any clue what the design represents. In my mind, the 3 men and 2 women are doing something like dancing a ceilidh, as we do here in Scotland. Well, when there's not pandemic times around, of course. But it could also be peat cutting to burn on their fires, or have you got a better idea instead? Maybe you recognise the design. The pattern just calls it a lady's cardigan, and it's for a 34-inch bust, and the back is worked in white only, so at least you don't have to read the pattern for that. The 4th Golden Eagle pattern the Yarn Fairy brought us is number 549, and isn't it incredibly striking? But not sure Yarn Fairy what it will do if stretched over a fuller bust. It's called the Sea Waves jumper, and I hope it doesn't make you seasick looking at that pattern. It was designed for a 34/36-inch bust, and interestingly is actually knit sideways and attached to the welt or the ribbing. If you look at the back of the pattern, there's also some interesting adverts for other Golden Eagle patterns, which includes leaflet number 4569, called Maid's Twin Set. Does this mean that there were far more patterns produced each year than we thought? Or even different series, because this seems to be for the standard Golden Eagle wool versus the poly knit that we've actually got here. Anyway, back to the design, and it's very striking. I've seen one of these projects finished on Ravelry, so it can be completed obviously without going cross-eyed. This Golden Eagle pattern I think is truly a work of art. But Golden Eagle just called it Ladies Jumper, leaflet number 539. I would also guess that this is 1949, given the proximity to the last pattern that we were obviously able to date. although the styling and feel of the pamphlet puts it slightly earlier, before printing had fully recovered from the World War II rationing. This pattern's for a bust size 32/36 inches, and it's actually a 16-row pattern repeat, so that's going to take some memorising. Efforts on the back include a Batwing jumper, which was repeated in the 1980s if you're old enough to remember, but I'm sure as teenagers we were oblivious to that fashion repeat. Great choices, Yarn Fairy. Just like yesterday, the Yarn Fairy has brought you an extra treat for being such a great community, liking, subscribing and commenting this year. A bonus pattern by Patons, I believe, is from the 1930s, given the styling, the makeup and the 2D price. The leaflet actually has 2 designs in it, and the pattern number is 2/669 from the Helps to Knitter series. Firstly, there's the Pauline design that's illustrated on the front cover, and inside you've got the Lynette design. They're called dressing jackets, or we might also call them dressing gowns or bed jackets. As they weren't styled to meet in the middle, there's no actual chest size, just the length from the neck to the lower edge at the back, which is 23 inches. If you look on the back of the leaflet, the adverts include the pattern that you would have just bought. And if you haven't watched some of the other days, there's a playlist on the channel. I'm the Knitting Patternista, and I collect vintage knitting and crochet patterns to use, and you're welcome to join me on this wonderful adventure. I would love it if you subscribe, Patternistas, so you don't miss the next episode and enjoy in all of the vintage knitting pattern fun. Hopefully you'll find some inspiration for your next cast on. Until next time, Patternistas, stay safe, stay healthy and happy knitting!